Hello and welcome to session 1 of the Bullshit Buster. So first of all, thank you so much for joining my community and looking to use the Bullshit Buster in your own life. This probably means that you are stuck in an area of your life and you haven't been able to solve the problem or come to a place where you're able to live peacefully with the problem. So that is exactly what the Bullshit Buster is going to help you do, and this video is going to explain a little bit about how the Bullshit Buster works. So firstly, my name is Eleanor and I have been using some version of the Bullshit Buster for the last probably 6 or 7 years. I was initially introduced to this line of work through my psychologist. So 6 or 7 years ago, I was going through a really bad breakup. It was a very drawn out breakup because our lives were very entangled. We owned 3 restaurants together. And so for the sake of the restaurants, we'd been trying to make it work for a period of years and it was not working. And both of us were feeling incredibly stuck, frustrated. I was breaking down in tears all the time. I'm sure you've all been through a breakup. You know what it's like, especially when you're living together, your lives are entangled. So it was an incredibly difficult time, and I was seeing a psychologist through the whole 3-year period and beyond. And she introduced me to this inquisitive process, and she did it a slightly different way. I've made a few tweaks to it over the years. But she introduced me to the process, and I found it so incredibly useful that I used to sit down and have sessions where I would target one specific problem and use the Bullshit Buster on myself. But it got to a point where I was able to just kind of use it in my day-to-day life on any problems that might come up and run through it quite quickly without having to think too much about it, so that I would be able to get out of the headspace of having the problem and go on with my life. So the way that the Bullshit Buster works is it's intended, as I said, an inquisitive process. It's a process of self-discovery. And the reason that it works is because the way our memories are formed. So a lot of people think that memories are formed and they're stored as little packets of information in our brain. But research has been done on this and they've not been able to find the location of where those little pockets of memories might be, which led them to believe that memories are in fact not stored as little pockets of information, but they're actually stored as connections between neurons. So our brain is full of neurons, and whenever we have a new experience, neurons fire between each other and they create what are called synapses, which is a kind of bridge between one neuron and another. And that's a memory. So if we look at an example, when we have a new experience, say I'm going out and trying coffee. I actually don't drink coffee, so that would be a fairly new experience for me. So say I was going to go out and try some coffee for the first time. My brain, I would drink the coffee, and my brain would relate that feeling back to all other experiences I've known about coffee. So it would relate that back to me having to taste test coffee when I owned my cafes, to seeing people drink coffee on TV, to hearing my friends and what they think about coffee, to seeing adverts for coffee. Any information that my brain has about coffee, it will fire off, it will make synapses, connections between the neurons to connect all of those experiences and present me with the experience that I get in the moment about trying coffee. So as another example of that, when we are children, our brain is constantly making these connections because most experiences are new to us as children, right? So riding a bicycle, for example, the first time a child rides a bicycle, they will make connections between seeing kids ride bicycles on their shows, seeing their friends ride bicycles, knowing little bits about balance perhaps, and they're going to make all of those connections together to create the experience that is riding a bicycle. And if they fall off the bicycle the first time that they try. Maybe they hurt themselves, maybe they find it quite traumatizing. And then the next time they go to ride a bicycle, potentially as soon as they see the bicycle, they're going to relate that past experience of falling off the bicycle the first time, hurting themselves, all that trauma, all that sadness, all that pain, and then they may be afraid to ride the bicycle again. And that could last them their whole lives. So a lot of the personality traits that we have, or reactions that we give, are based on our past experiences, and most of the time we don't even know where these came from. These could be insignificant experiences in our childhood that mean nothing to us today, but they've gone on to shape our whole future and the way that we act. So that's why the Bullshit Buster works, because what we do is we go in and we question the reality of that connection that we've automatically made. You can go a step further and go digging around in your childhood and try and figure out where the connection was first made. And if you can bring awareness to where the connection was first made, then you can probably disappear that reaction altogether from your life. That's something that I've been working on recently, and I will do sessions in the future that cover this. But for now, we're just going to look at catching a process in action and questioning its validity, and then creating a new possibility, which is what the Bullshit Buster helps us do. So I've been using the Bullshit Buster on myself, as I said, for a long time. And for me now, it's very much an automatic process where I can just sort of quickly think to myself, hang on, is this really happening? No, okay, move on. But for the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to go through it fully, explaining each stage so that it's very clear and very, it should be very simple to use. But that said, it's not going to be easy, and it does require you to be open, honest, and in touch with your feelings. Not just in touch with your feelings, but willing to accept and take responsibility for your feelings, which is not easy, especially sometimes where we are sure that something has happened and it's the other person's fault. We do not want to take responsibility for that. So I hadn't thought of an example beforehand, but I'm going to use an example of something that's come up in my life recently. And I will go into a little bit about the backstory of where the story came from, just to give some clarity. So it's a story with something that happened with one of my closest friends, and she's also my business partner. So her and I have been working together on a business. It's an app in the real estate space for about 4 years. And the business has been through some tumultuous times. We had to launch in the middle of COVID. Our original development was supposed to take 5 months. It ended up taking about 2 years. As soon as we launched, we lost our developers. We had to find new developers. We paid for one, they ghosted us. We had to find another one. It took another 6 months. The business was incredibly stressful. And it tested our friendship to some extent. We'd been lucky in that we were always generally on the same page about what we wanted to do and where we wanted the business to go. So at least we were aligned in our visions, but we didn't always agree on the best way to get there. Of course, we've got 2 different personalities, and we are quite different in the way that we approach business, which is why we work well as partners. But of course, it does often cause some misalignment in the relationship. And if there's misalignment in a relationship and the 2 people in the relationship are not self-aware to see that, it could cause huge problems. And it had been causing problems for us, especially since I left the country. So we were not in regular contact anymore. We were awake in different time zones. So from a fractured business that we weren't sure what was happening with, it was incredibly difficult for us to get back on the same page, not being able to communicate openly with each other for a lot of the time. So the situation had gotten to a point where we had discovered an opportunity for the business. It wasn't 100% aligned with what our business was doing at the time. However, it was let's say 70% aligned, and it was our only option really. It was do this or do nothing. So we both had kind of said that, yeah, we should look into this opportunity. However, our personal circumstances did not allow us, either of us, to put any more money into the business. And my business partner was also struggling for time because she was still in Australia. She had no help, childcare, and she was working full time. Whereas I am currently in Brazil. I've got a lot of my husband's family around to look after the children, and so I can free myself up. And because of this imbalance, I felt like my business partner was holding me back from following up with this business opportunity, because she wasn't able to work on it, and organising meetings between different time zones and around kids and nap times is incredibly difficult. So I was feeling like, here's an opportunity, I want to go, I want to start working on it right away. And she was feeling, this is such a great opportunity, I really want to do this, but I just don't have time. So there was a misalignment, and it left me to feel very frustrated, and in a position where I had lost power and control. So my gut reaction when that happens is to say, whatever, I'm going to go do it by myself. You do what you want to do. I'm going to go do it my way. That's the story that I've been carrying around since I was a child. And that's something that I have to catch in myself. Now that I've brought awareness to it, I'm able to catch that sometimes, and I see myself doing it. So I had called a meeting with my business partner, and I had said, look, this isn't working, it's stressing me out, I don't know what's happening with the business, I want to move forward, you don't have time, I'm just going to do it by myself. And we had a fairly tense conversation where, I had said that to her, and she was shocked because it had come out of nowhere, and it had gotten to the point where it was just, it was a little bit awkward between us, because I had basically said, fuck you, I'm going to go do it by myself. Luckily, working through that later with my life coach, he pulled me up on it and he said, what are you doing? This is your story. Let's bullshit bust it, basically. So at this point, let's go ahead and go through the bullshit buster. So in order to really make the bullshit buster as effective as possible, it's really important that you take a few minutes before you start your session to really get into the feelings that arise with the situation. So for me, I do it on the fly as situations arise. So I'm usually in the feeling. But if this is something like an ongoing problem or issue that you're going through, or one that you are approaching after it's already happened, then you're going to need to take a few minutes. You can close your eyes if you like, and just get into the zone of the problem, like whatever the feelings are that are coming up for you. So for me, it was frustration, anger, resentment. I just want to sit and I'm going to think about the situation with my eyes closed, and I'm just going to bring back all those feelings. I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to make myself feel really, really resentful, really restrained, really held back, really frustrated, really, I want to do this. I'm going to embrace those feelings, and I'm not going to run away from them. If they start to get quite intense, I'm not going to try and distract my mind and think about something else. I'm just going to sit in those feelings and really, really feel them. The crazy thing is, a lot of the time, just doing that will work. Just sitting in the feelings and really feeling them, a lot of the time will just make the feeling go away. But it might come back later. It often does come back later, especially if it's something big. So if we run the bullshit buster process on it, the idea is that it will not come back, or that if it does, it will be much less powerful. So we sit in those feelings and we allow ourselves to really, really, really feel them. Feel the anger, the resentment, the mistrust, the disalignment. And then after a few minutes of doing that, we're going to make a statement that states our problem with a certain format that's going to allow us to work on it. So what we're going to say is, I am. We're going to follow that with an emotion. We're going to follow that with the person or the situation that we're upset about. And then we're going to say because and what happened. So, I am frustrated with my business partner because she's holding me back. So I've structured my question to say, first, me, how I feel, with whom or what, and why. Who? So, how, who, what, why. Okay, so when we've done that, we're going to go through a process of asking ourselves 5 questions. And for each of the questions, we're not going to rush through, we're going to take our time, and we want to make sure that the answers are coming to us from inside. We want the answers to be coming from our heart, from the right side of our brain, our emotional brain, not the left logical side. We want the right side to feel an answer. Okay, so we're already sitting in our feelings of mistrust and resentment. And we're going to ask ourselves, does this story exist in reality? So the story is, I am frustrated with my business partner because she's holding me back. Does this story exist in reality? So we're going to look within for an answer. And I'm thinking to myself, my initial gut reaction is yes, it exists. I'm so frustrated. She's holding me back. It really exists. I'm going to look a little bit deeper and I'm going to see that there are feelings of frustration. It's true, it exists. They are directed towards my business partner. It's true, it exists. Because she's holding me back. Now, my initial reaction is, yes, she's holding me back. But when I think about it a little bit more, is she really holding me back? I mean, could I just go and do this by myself within the business that we already own? Yes, I could. She's not stopping me. She's not here. She's not holding my hands behind my back. So is she holding me back? Then the left side of my brain is probably going to chip in and be like, yes, she's holding you back because you're partners, you're 50-50. So if she's not doing 50% of the work, then you can't do 50% of the work. She's holding you back. It's starting not to feel right. The right side of my brain is saying, that's a little bit unfair. It doesn't always have to be 50-50. The point of having a partner is that one of you can pick up the slack when the other one's struggling, right? Isn't that what a partnership is? Okay, so I'm starting to see that maybe this statement doesn't exist in reality. I'm going to move on to the next question. Does the story's existence or not in reality make it true? So we've confirmed that the story exists in reality. It's definitely in my reality. It's probably not in her reality. Is it true? So if I was clinging to this story, I'm frustrated with my business partner because she's holding me back. That's my reality. For her, she's probably thinking, what the hell is Eleanor doing? We're business partners. Why is she trying to do this by herself? We're partners. So for her, that story is not true. She's not seeing that she's holding me back. She's just wondering why I'm acting alone in a partnership. So is the story true? No. It's not true for me because I can see really she's not holding me back. It's not true for her. And if you were to ask general people out there, like our friends, our joint friends, for example, if Leanne was holding me back, they would say, of course not. She's really busy at the moment. She's your friend. And, if if things happen the way you want them to, she'd probably drop everything to work on the business. Like, she wouldn't hold you back. She loves this business. She would put her all into it. The story's not true. It's just in my head. It can be quite tricky, question 2, to really accept that the story has come about because of a connection that you've made in your brain, and accept responsibility for making that connection. So question 2, you may need to spend, some real time on. And question 3 is going to really hammer home the point. Did I create this story? Yes, I created the story that my business partner is holding me back. I created the story because it allowed me to blame somebody else for not working on doing what I wanted to do within the business. It allows me to shift responsibility and blame from myself to somebody else. It allows me to feel better about the fact I'm not pushing 100% to push the business forward, because I'm saying, well, she's not doing it, so I'm not doing it either. I created this story to excuse myself for not working on the business. Wow. In actual fact, I created this story to hold me back. When you put yourself in the story, how do you feel is the 4th question. Well, we already know I feel restricted, frustrated, restrained, held back, angry, all kinds of nasty, nasty things. Resentment towards my business partner, who's also one of my best and closest friends. I feel like a failure because my business is not moving forward. And I feel like a hypocrite because I teach people to use this tool and I'm not using it myself. It's not a good place to be. So I move on to the 5th question. If the story didn't exist, what possibilities could you create for yourself? So I take the story, I'm feeling frustrated with my business partner because she's holding me back. And I imagine that did not exist in my existence. There's no business partner holding me back, there's no frustration. I can move forward freely. What possibilities can I create? I can create a successful business. I can create a harmonious relationship with my business partner. I can create open communication between me and my business partner. I can create a scenario where I work full force on this opportunity because I have the time, and when my business partner has the time, she will join in, and maybe then I could take a little break. I can create the possibility of this opportunity being the best thing that ever happened to my business, and my business going global rapidly and creating a better rental market for the world. I can create the possibility that my app changes and improves the world. And all I had to do is remove the thought that my business partner is holding me back and I'm frustrated by it. Because that's not true. That's something that I made up. It's a story, a connection that I made from past experiences that's holding me back. So when I look at the possibilities of what I could create without that story in my head, now I can make a choice. Do I choose to believe that my business partner is holding back and it's frustrating me? Or do I choose to believe that story does not exist and there are possibilities of this opportunity being the best thing that ever happened to my business launching, becoming global, and improving the rental market and the rental crises around the world? That's what I choose. And that is how to use the bullshit buster. Because all of the stories that we're carrying around in our head are creations that we've made. They're connections between neurons in our brain, a scientific process. It's how our brain works. But it's led us to this place that's making us unhappy giving us problems, giving me problems, and I don't want problems. So I'm going to change those connections by bringing awareness to them, accepting responsibility for them, and finally appreciating what a great story I came up with to hold myself back. It was a great story. Covered all the bases, didn't it? I didn't have to do any work, and it was all my business partner's fault. My business was just going to fail, and it was nothing to do with me. Such a good story, but it wasn't true. And it's not in anybody's best interests. So I reached out to my business partner. I came clean about all of this. I apologised, and we are now moving forward with our business. And I've completely disappeared the thought that she's holding me back. The thought is gone. The bullshit buster busted my bullshit. So give it a try for yourselves. Take a problem that's been bugging you, structure it in the way you need to structure it. You can go to Bullshit Buster. There's lots of examples of me using it there. And please let me know how you get on. Come comment.